Unity, oneness of minds, feelings as among a number of persons, harmony, concord, and agreements. Hello, I'm Ernest Lowery. Welcome to the podcast Unity, a place where you can come together and understand what's happening in your community. What does the community want? It wants great schools, it wants to be self-sustaining, and it wants to take crime out the neighborhoods. Come join us at Podcast Unity. Hello, I'm Ernest Lowery. Welcome to another episode of Podcast Unity. I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure of being with Chief Apostle George Tasby. And we're looking forward to talk about a variety of topics, what we can do with the young kids in our neighborhood, and what the future lies for a lot of them. So, Apostle Tasby, how are you?
I'm doing just great, Mr. Lowery.
I'm so thrilled to have you on my show today. It's been a long time coming, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate you being here.
Oh, this is indeed a pleasure and always an opportunity for me to expound on some of the things that we have in the community for our youth and children.
Okay, so let's get to it. So, what you been up to lately?
I run my studio ad, and a lot of things that I've been doing with the students is through Zoom. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know, I've always done hands-on, and I am still doing somewhat of hands-on, but not in such a, as would you say, in a large capacity right. as I was at first. And it was new for me to teach by Zoom, mm-hmm. but it was a wonderful experience, and I truly enjoyed it because at first I said, now how in the world, Lord, am I going to teach someone to play the piano, voice? Acting may not have been a problem so much as it was that which I felt was the hands-on, right. which is that piano and the vocal techniques that they need to do, especially when I'm playing the piano and they have to sing with the music. And sometimes the sound may, as it goes through the airways, may not be the exact key that they're hearing as I am playing on the piano, because a lot of people are not aware that when you have a CD and the music is recorded one place and you bring it, especially I've seen it happen in services, right. and you bring it in there and the people are singing, they're thinking the choir or the group, they're saying, what's going on? It's too high. Or they say, it's too low. Why is it sounding like that? It's because it changes when you put it in somewhere else than what right. it is on that instrument.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that the kids are the ones that who discover this, or it's something that you're doing and your producers do when you talk about the transition of sound?
I have to tell people that if they're singing with a CD, that they have to know that, especially choirs, or some choirs are doing that now. And a long time ago, I always told my students, especially those that were coming for the first time, it's not good to sing with a lot of CDs because it's altogether different than someone assisting you with live music itself, with the instruments. Mm-hmm. It's a different transition, mm-hmm. and sometimes you can actually ad-lib more right. when someone is assisting you as a musician mm-hmm. than when you are using some kind of tape or CD that you have to sing what you can't. You have to do exactly what's on that CD right. that you have been trained to sing with. I tell them all the time, it changes the pitch. Right. So I had to teach them how to do different things like that. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes it may be high or it may be lower, depending on where they inserted it. Right. But what you wanted to know is how we envisioning our youth today. Yes, of course. You hit the nail on the head. Now, my question, I want to ask a question about it. So, therefore, I know you are pushing positive things, which I am a believer in giving positive, effective, inspirational changes to our youth. Mm-hmm. And once you change the way they think, you can do that. So my thought is, and how I envision doing that is still through academics along with the performing arts. And one of the things that I'm telling people today, that the performing arts is still as extremely important as it was hundreds of years ago, because it's in our DNA.
Right. Well,
That's
let me ask
part
you
of
this. I'm a community guy, and when I listen to the people in the community, and I hear the positive things about what you've done, or in the past, and things that you're doing right now, that's one of the reasons why you're on the show. But now I remember when you used to be on High Street.
That's right.
And
For
you had
40 years.
You had a plethora of people there singing, dancing,
That's
arts,
it.
performing.
Everything. Yeah.
So, do you still have that cluster of people now through Zoom that you had back then? And what's the real difference between the two interactions?
It's very different. Like I said, I had to get used to it myself. I didn't know if I was going to have to be able to do it, but I was. Thank God for telling me. It was a learning experience, but at the same time, I enjoyed it after a while. The first 2 times I didn't.
Right.
But then I didn't let the students know I didn't.
Is it because it was something new?
For
New
them
territory?
too.
Okay.
It was new territory for them as well as for me.
Right.
But I did it with the help of the Lord, and they responded, and they were able to do it. And one thing I would like to share that was so funny, they thought I didn't know the difference. If they hadn't practiced, or if they were hitting the right notes. And if you have perfect pitch or relative pitch, you can hear it. And sometimes the way the camera would be adjusted with some of them, I couldn't see the full scope of the piano itself. And those that played the keyboard, the sound, that's what I kept telling you, was so different. And I said, are you striking such and such a note? I said, because it certainly doesn't. I said, put the camera directly on where your fingers are so I can see what you're playing.
Right.
And then I said, okay, the sound, the pitch was different.
Right.
Most people think keyboards and pianos are the same. No, they're not. The action is different. It's not the same. There's no sound, as the cliche used to say, for Baldwin, like a Baldwin sound,
Right.
where there's no sound can take the place of a true piano. You can get close to it, but the touch, which is the action of the hammer and that key striking, is still a completely different. So if you can master the piano, people that are professionals know you can play mostly any instrument.
Well, it sounds like a tuning issue. Is that not correct, or no?
It's nothing. It's not tuning so much as, like one young lady in particular, she had only the keyboard. And she has a piano, but it was another part of the house in the garage.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, what are you playing? I said, play that note again. And I said, let me see. And she was playing the right note. I said, and I'm on my piano in my studio room where I teach the piano lessons at. So it was so different for me because I'm used to the perfect pitch of the sound, and that was completely off. And because I can play by rote, which is playing by ear, the key sound came out different.
Right. So what are some of the big things that your students have done over the years, some of the things that you're most proud of?
Well, I would say that all of it made me more humble. I have had the largest, when Jet magazine was out, I had the largest amount of Jet centerfolds came from out of my studio.
Great.
Some of them are still on Broadway at this time. Some of my students that went to Axel for the NAACP, a lot of them were from my studio.
Okay.
That won the medals.
Right.
And some of them now are professionals in opera, on Broadway, motion pictures, film, cast for CSI New York. In fact, when I do the conference, I bring in New York School of Film and Television, who casts for Law and Order, SUV, CSI New York, and all the residual commercials.
Okay, so now tell me, I know I'm kind of drifting around here a little bit, but for the short amount of time that we have, tell me about what's happening over in Newport News with the Newsom House. What's happening
Well,
over there?
I was asked to be their project consultant. They contacted me to do that.
Impressive.
Because her name is Mrs. Vivian Ashlock, is the executive director and chair over in fact, the Newsom House Museum and Cultural Center located on Oak Street. What we have done is develop a series of plays that will be coming up and an orator production that will be consisting of poems, speeches by Martin Luther King, or they can write their own, poems, the spoken word, all of that they can do. And they're offering the foundation $500 for the top prize, then $250, $175, and if you're younger, like in 5 or 7 or 8, you can win $50.
Okay,
And it's for 5 years old up to 85.
okay,
And you can compete in any of those age groups. And our topic for Black History Month is, what would Martin do? What would Martin King have to do, or what would he say about the gun violence now? What would he say? What can we do to prevent gun violence? What would Martin say about parental abuse now? What would he say about bullying and emotional abuse? Because that's what that is.
right. And don't forget about voting rights and how
That's right. What would Martin say about voter suppression, and also about the economical crisis that's facing today?
Right.
What would Martin Luther King say? And if you think about it, he made speeches concerning every area of that. A lot of people just talk about "I Have a Dream" speech, but Martin Luther King wrote 2,500 different speeches.
Right.
And the speech that caused his death was when he started actually pressing the other persuasions and the jobs to pay our people just like they deserve, like all other body. That's exactly right. Remember when they marched? And I have the book with the pictures about this size. I Am a Man. And they were marching for the right wages. So they went on a strike, and they would not pick up any garbage.
Right.
And the piles of, yes, I have pictures of it and everything. So that was why they got mad and had him assassinated, because he was teaching and telling our people how important it is to be paid a wage that's comfortable and acceptable to what they do.
Okay, so let's take way back to this Newsom House project. What would Martin say? So how long is this particular program, and how many people are in a particular category to win these particular prizes?
Well, when it was discussed by the committee, which would not just be me, it was Mrs. Ashlock. She's the executive director. She's the one. And Mr. Glenn Francis, he's also on the committee, along with one other individual. They decided about the ages when they said, let's say, if you're in college, you can win you can win $250.
Right.
If you are over 23, you can win the $500.
Okay.
All right, if you're a teenager, you can do the 100. If you're a younger child, you will get like a $50 Visa card. And of course, it's $250, $175.50.
So is this something that's specifically for Newport News, or is it something regional?
Anybody can do it. I'm glad you brought that up. It's for anybody who wants to register. The registration is $25. That's it.
Gotcha.
And the good part of it is they just ask you to sell 5 tickets priced at $20
Right.
each. And that all proceeds will go to the Newsom House Foundation for their after-school program that they are introducing for
Right.
the first time. And one thing they're going to be doing during the day for children in kindergarten, pre-K, to come in and have story time about different African Americans. Of course, Joseph Newsom, the lawyer himself. And they want Stephen Alexander, the comedian,
Right.
an impersonator that's also an actor that's a part of my theater group, that is going to be doing the storytelling, and he's going to be dressed in costume like Lafayette,
Right.
the black revolutionary
Right.
soldier.
So as we close this segment out, what does the future hold for you right now as far as working with kids? Or is this thing that you're doing with the Newsom House, is that a long-term project or?
Well, Mrs. Ashlock would like it to be a long-term time. Hold on. And you didn't put me on the spot. She got to find out on straight.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to just make sure the program is off and running and done. And we want youth and children to register for the after-school program, for the tutorial programs that we are doing for the academics. We also will have a diabetes program that's being sponsored by the National Diabetes Association. If you come in and register for it, we're going to give you T-shirts, so many wonderful things that you have, and they're going to
Okay.
teach the kids how to cook.
All right, now, so do you have a website or a telephone number, how people can reach you?
You can reach her at this number, 757-503-1609, 757-503-1609, or register at 2803 Oak Avenue, Newport News. And if you just have to call me, it's 202-812-2804, 202-812-2804. And they're also auditioning for the play, The Underground Railroad, as well.
Okay, well, Chief Apostle George Tasby, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been a great guest, and I hope that you come back again and we can elaborate a little bit more on some of the things that you're doing. And I know you are out there working hard in the community, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Ernest Lowery, for having me.
Okay, it's my pleasure. So, this ends another episode of the podcast Unity. Again, I'm Ernest Lowery. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Thank you.
Welcome to Comedic Services, LLC. We provide supportive in-home and residential group home services in the Hampton Roads area, including Williamsburg, Franklin, Zuni, Joanno, and Southampton County. Our offices are located at 2428 Almeida Avenue, Suite 170 in Norfolk, Virginia, and at 601 North Mechanic Street in Franklin, Virginia. Comedic Services, LLC is a commission on accreditation of rehabilitation facilities, CARF, accredited service. Our motto is fostering a culture of service and advocacy for humanity.
Two words: journal and guide.
Hello, I'm Ernest Lowery. Welcome back to the second half of Podcast Unity. And today I have my special guest, Mr. Nigel Taylor with the Cisco system. And so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Welcome, and I should say thank you, Ernest, for having me. I'm really excited to participate as part of the podcast. Basically, you know, my story starts with being a migrant, being from Trinidad and Tobago. Migrated to the U.S. with my mom when I was young. Went to college for a couple of years, and then quickly pivoted from there, joined the military, the Air Force specifically. I was fortunate enough, like most, went in the Air Force thinking I was going to work on planes, but they had a different plan. which was really centered around networking and computers. And, lo and behold, they actually put me on a career path. So that's really my story as it relates to, where I'm from and my background. From there, I spent a few years in the Air Force traveling the world and actually getting into networking and computer systems. And then from there, with Y2K and a lot of the different transformations, we are where we are today. Computers and networks are at the center of our lives.
All right. So the Cisco company, I would assume, deal with a lot of outreach programs. Can you elaborate a little bit on some of the things that they may do for the community?
Yeah.
Or employees?
Yeah. Well, so Cisco is, a Fortune 100 company, and they are a telecommunications juggernaut, I would say. And when you think of Cisco Systems, you just need to think of them as the company, or one of the key companies that power the internet. A lot of the hardware and software technologies that we make, build, and sell is really centered around the connections that connect to your home, that then connect to the AT&Ts, Verizons, and Coxes of this world, and then that passes all that data across the internet. One of the actual center of the company's values is what we call connected society.
Right.
And it's really an empowerment statement and a purpose behind the company to get everyone connected, make sure everyone has access, and then more importantly, drive sustainable, what we call circular outcomes across communities. And an example of that would be STEM. A lot of people may or may not realize that Cisco leads Cisco Networking Academy, and they're pretty much everywhere across the US and international. And that actually caters to K through 12 students in terms of giving them an introduction to networking technology and systems, so that they can actually identify career paths that potentially lead them to their future. And then second to that, we also participate and are huge sponsors of what we call the Cyber Patriot program.
Right.
And that's another program within communities. Actually, it's actually part of K through 12 school programs, where as part of the program, they are given the challenge of protecting secure virtual networks. So, people like me, we were part of the mentor program. We work with schools and other programs to help the kids understand the basics of computers, how networks work, how you secure them, how you protect them.
Right. That's one thing I was going to kind of segue into about the system, the company being as large as it is, and you mentioned STEM. And so how does that fit into the curriculum or what Cisco itself is doing in regards to having people come in and training? Is it somebody that's off the street, or is it through a school system that they participate in to bring students or young adults in?
So yeah, good question. It's actually a multitude of avenues that you can take. The school programs are part of schools, so they're embedded. Then there are Cisco academies that are just part of a program that you can enroll into and get what we call these various certification levels. So you start very small, and you can grow as you kind of educate and get more time on the equipment and testing. So yeah, it gives a lot of avenues. You don't have to be in school. You can be a college student, and it's a part of college programs as well.
Right. So that give, I guess I want to call a person a client that's trying to get a job in the company. But once they get their foot in the door, are there opportunities for those students or young adults or people who are coming into the company to branch out on their own?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I'll give you another example. You come to Cisco through a networking academy, and a high school student, if you attain what we call a certificate network associate, a certified network associate certificate, with that, you can actually, it's almost like interning coming out of college, right? It's almost a trade type level certification. So you can actually go to a company and says, I've done this level of work. I have this level of on-the-job training. And with that, you actually can be actually hired to do the job as a student, somebody graduating high school, basically.
Right. Okay, so how does the Cisco company fit into to the scheme of things worldwide. And now I know from the outset when we was talking about the large multi-billion-dollar
Yes.
company.
Yep.
So how do they stack up with everybody else as far as performance and cultural related things that they do for the community?
So, I mean, I can speak to Cisco. I mean, I know, in terms of networking companies, we're one of maybe 3 or 4 top networking companies in the world, globally. I've been fortunate. I've been with the company coming on actually just 2 years. And in the 2 years I've been there, it's just been remarkable to kind of see the outreach, the kind of employee engagement. An example of that is, we have these, what we call check-ins. And, they bring a notable amount of people to those check-ins. We had like Common, we had like Audrey Day,
Right.
we had a bunch of local civil leaders come in, the NAACP. We had all these kinds of engagements for employees to ask questions about, situations like with George Floyd, and then equality, and so many range of different topics. So the company is really committed to being an inclusive employer. I think that's what's important. And they show that by the kind of engagement we have at work.
Okay. Nigel, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just want to ask, how has the company handled, in your view, this COVID situation? Can you speak on that just a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. So look, I think the company has tried to focus on what they would say is keeping employees safe. And I'll give you a quick example of that is they came out and said, based on the CDC guidance, we follow the science by protecting our employees. And you basically had to enroll your COVID status. If you had a religious or some type of exemption, they gave that pathway for you to stay with the company. But if you didn't meet any of those criteria, there was a potential for you to be exited from the company. So they take it really seriously.
Right.
They want you to come to work, but they want you to go engage customers in a way that allows them to understand that they're taking the necessary precautions to keep the population safe.
Right.
And I think that's a bigger part of the purpose. Yeah.
Right. So you work from home.
Mostly, yeah.
Right. Now, is that part of that situation, the COVID situation, why you work at home, or is that just the way your job led you to work from home?
Yeah. So that's one great thing about the work that I do. And then generally in the technology field, a lot of the roles actually are kind of remote work, as we would call it. And there's a lot of times I have to go to customer engagements. I'll go to a customer site or I'll go to an event, as we would call them. But predominantly my work allows me to work at home because most of it's like on video, or most of it is a lot of computer driven work. So you're working in a computer, you're designing, you're programming, you're doing the kinds of things that you don't really necessarily have to be in an office. You can technically work anywhere.
Okay. So for someone who's listening to the program, what advice can you give them if they have interest in doing what you do, and how do they get involved with that? And I know you talked about, a little while ago, we talked about the outreach program that the company has. If they don't know anything about the company but want to get involved, what should they do?
So I think the first step would definitely be, the internet is an incredible source of information. So, as we've been discussing, I think just search Cisco. If you're watching this, and then, things like Cisco Networking Academy, and then as well as Cyber Patriots. So those are the 2 programs we talked about. Outside of that, I would say, really lean into kind of really where it is you want to go. And I'll give you an example. When I was a small child, my dad actually gave me a nickname. He called me the Destroyer. And what he really meant by it was when I was very young, I had this really inquisitive mind, and anything electronic, I was trying to figure out how did it work, and what's inside of it. So I would say, if you have that, trait, I would say use it, and then take that same passion, look for people, we call it birds of a feather, people like yourself, surround yourself with those people because they kind of give you the drive to say, what are you doing? What am I doing? Let's kind of figure out how we can go forward together. But there's so many resources out there. Sometimes just asking a question. If you're in high school, see if you have a Cyber Patriot program in the school, because you have resources right there available to you. And it's a question of who's in charge and how can you participate.
Right.
If you're not in high school, if you're in college, the academies are at most colleges. So look at your resource, look at your guidance, see if they have information on those types of programs. Outside of that, I'm more than willing to engage.
Right.
So, Ernest is going to have my information. If you want to reach out, hit up Ernest, and I'm more than willing to meet up and have a conversation with others as well.
Well, I appreciate that shout out. But as we come to a close here, let me ask you, as far as the company is concerned and what anyone can do, I guess from a broader scale, the prism of what Cisco does, what are some of the key job offerings do they have, or what directions are they in?
Well, I mean, it is just incredible, right? I mean, like we discussed, a multi-billion-dollar company, and they range in everything. So the company, right, while we're a technology company, which means it's engineering, design, architecture, but we have people in systems and enterprise accounting and finance, international law. It really just comes to where you focus, what's your interest, what is your degree in, if you have a degree or your advanced degree, and really what you're passionate about.
Right.
And, it's just a matter of going to the website of the company and saying, what interests me, search that out, and I'm guessing there's probably going to be a role for you.
Right.
Yep.
So I guess that website would be www.cisco.com.
Yep. And there's a jobs, so it's probably .com/jobs, but
Right.
yeah, you go there and thousands of jobs, right? I don't know if anybody's tracking, but they're saying that there's a huge mass resignation, so there's so many jobs available.
Right.
So yeah, if you're
a good time.
interested, it's the perfect time. It's the employees market. Go visit the site and
Right.
see if there's a job for you, because there are many, many jobs.
Well, Nigel Taylor, I really appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
the show.
Thank you for having
and spending
me.
some time with us out of your busy schedule. And
No, not busy for you, man. Not busy for you.
and I thank you so much. So here we are today, coming to a close of another episode. Again, I'm Ernest Lowery. This is Unity Podcast. Please join us next time. Thank you so much for joining us.